Mr. Needle, can you take roll call for the record, please?
Sure thing. Commissioner Bacco?
Here.
Commissioner Whitaker? Here. Commissioner Gaudioso?
Here.
Commissioner Rakowski?
Here.
Commissioner Neary? Here. Lisa Catania? Michael Pierce should be
Here.
joining us virtually. And myself, George Needle, is present.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the public for coming out tonight. Before we move on to citizens' comments, I'd just like to make one brief announcement. The board met tonight in executive session to discuss personnel matters. And with that said, we have a presentation tonight from Delta One Development for the Linwood Heights redevelopment plan presentation. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Ms. Kelly so she can get the presentation started. And the individual, Dane, will be presenting, and Dane and Teresa will be presenting, and they will be doing it virtually. We do have a screen showing the Heights neighborhood revitalization plan on the wall. So if you'd like to see it, the audience, you're more than welcome to turn around and look at it. So with that said, Dane, if you're ready to present, we're ready to listen.
Yep. Can everyone hear me on your end?
Yes, we can hear.
Okay, great. So I guess how this would probably work best is if we do a screen share session here where we have the PowerPoint kind of walk through it that way. So can everyone see my screen? Great.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So I guess I'd like to start off by saying thank you for the opportunity to present here tonight. We enjoyed working in Chichester Township. We enjoyed working with the commissioners and the administrative staff. We can tell that everyone is very caring and very willing to discuss new opportunities in this neighborhood. We enjoyed working with Nicole, who is the elected commissioner for Linwood Heights, Lisa Catania, the township engineer, Brian Siddell, township planner, and also Barb. And they were also part of our various task force meetings and also the public open house. I would like to thank them, and I guess we'll get started here. Okay, so as you can see on your screen now, this is how Linwood Heights exists in the present. What we define the neighborhood as, it was bounded by Market Street, Lafayette Avenue, Blue Ball Avenue to the west, and I-95 to the north. This is our vision for a revitalized Linwood Heights. We'll come back later in the presentation and explain this in more detail, but as you can see here, there are certainly opportunities for revitalization and growth. This is an executive summary of our plan, kind of the key focus areas and goals that we discuss throughout the plan. Goal 1 was to enhance community involvement and communication. Goal 2 was to improve the neighborhood through stabilization and beautification efforts. Goal 3 is to create a safer neighborhood through public safety and capital improvements. Goal 4 is to enhance the neighborhood through effective code enforcement. And Goal 5 is to encourage growth through housing and mixed-use development. Existing conditions, 2018, Linwood Heights had a population of around 770 residents, and as compared to the 17,000 approximately in Upper Chichester Township as a whole. And the population in Linwood Heights is slowly declining. By 2023, it's projected to decline by about 0.1%, a little more. And while the population of Upper Chichester Township is anticipated to grow slightly. 2018, Linwood Heights had 290 households with an average household size of 2.66 residents, compared to 2.51 residents for Upper Chichester Township. The median household income in Linwood Heights is a bit lower at around $52,000 in 2018, as compared to the township as a whole, which was around $68,000. Existing conditions, Linwood Heights, homes in Linwood Heights are affordable. In 2018, Linwood Heights had a median home value of around $147,000 as compared to Upper Chichester Township, where the median home value is around $243,000. The housing stock in Linwood Heights tends to be a bit older than the township as a whole. About half are constructed in 1939 or earlier. And our parcel analysis with parcel data provided by the Delaware County Planning Department indicates that a little over a quarter of Linwood Heights homes are rental properties. In 2018, the number of vacant housing units stood at 7.6%, which is a bit higher than the township as a whole at 5.5%. Here we go into our outreach methods and survey findings. Robust public outreach led to the formation of this plan. On Friday, November 8, 2019, a public open house was held, and community input from potential plan directions and to gauge resident interest in different plan topics. After that, a public comment period was available, and the materials were open for comment from November to December, and then we opened up that public comment period again from December to January. The residents were also offered a mailed survey that could be returned via post or email. And during this period, resident questions were also answered via phone and email from Barb and myself. This is a summary of the survey findings. In terms of strengths, residents identify access to I-95, proximity to Philadelphia and other metropolitan areas, affordability of housing, and community feel, that smaller sense of community. They feel that those are Linwood Heights' greatest strengths. In terms of what residents would like to see improved, they would like to see the housing stock improved, they would like to see blight eliminated, they're looking for more retail, streetscape type improvements, and also reduced crime. Linwood Heights residents are also interested in more recreational options, such as a neighborhood trail. A majority of residents feel that Linwood Heights lacks sufficient parking, and the majority of residents would be open to the establishment of a housing rehabilitation program, which we will talk about a bit later. Residents would also like to see more retail and dining options to serve them, not specifically the highway travelers. The piggy bank activity, this is something that we did at the Neighborhood Task Force, the public open house meeting on November 8th. Attendees were given a plastic bag containing a quarter, a dime, a nickel, and a penny. Each of these attendees were asked to spend their money at 4 piggy banks based upon their priorities for the community plan. The priority areas that we identified were housing improvements, walkability, parking solutions, and recreation. With this money, attendees could either split their coins between the piggy banks, or they could spend more heavily in areas of particular interest by putting more than one coin in a piggy bank. After we completed this exercise, we totaled up the amount of money in each piggy bank, and the one that rose to the top with the most money was the housing improvements, followed by walkability, parking solutions, and lastly, recreation. SWOT analysis, this was a product of our task force meetings. With the SWOT analysis, you identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that face the neighborhood. And through this, we gathered up quite a bit of qualitative research for the final development of the plan. And the task force identified 3 major strengths. Location, I-95, transit routes are great. They go to Philadelphia, they go to Wilmington, different areas. Residents identified heart and soul community outreach as a strength. Also availability of the community center, since it is right in the middle of Linwood Heights. In terms of weaknesses, they feel that there's a loss of community feel and pride. They identified a lack of walkability due to poor sidewalks and crossings. They noticed that alleyways are in poor condition, programs are lacking, and the community center is inaccessible to non-Upper Chichester Township residents. They state that parking is inadequate, and they also identify narrow streets, which hampers the movement of emergency vehicles. In terms of opportunities, they identified sites for redevelopment, partnerships with organizations such as police, schools, etc., community input on signage and branding. They identified use of Johnson Avenue for intergenerational recreational space, public funding for facade improvements and rehab programs. Another opportunity would be to create a landlord group to get them invested in neighborhood improvements. They identified that vacant parcels can be utilized for recreational space, pop-up gardens, murals, play areas, etc. Also utilize community benefit agreements to get businesses involved in workforce programs. In terms of threats, they identified a loss in families and also a loss in jobs. They noticed that there are more transient populations in the neighborhood. Rentals and landlords, sometimes there's a lack of pride in those particular properties. They identified perceived crime as being an issue. And as a whole, they feel that Linwood Heights is not necessarily treated the same as other parts of the township due to the barrier of the highway. They also noticed that kids are kind of running around the neighborhood as it stands. We also conducted stakeholder interviews with various stakeholders, including representatives from the police department, license and inspection department, Delaware County Planning Department, the Historical Society, real estate and development firms, and religious institutions. And out of these, we identified three major recurring themes. The first being that the neighborhood is lacking a sense of community as it stands. They noted that population is more transient these days in the neighborhood, largely due to the presence of rental housing, also that crime is an issue. But they also noted that there has been some improvements to this particular issue. Upper Chichester Township Police Department are now involving resource officers in programs and activities. Schools and churches are willing to foster a sense of community as they get more involved. Helping Hands is also involved in community service projects. Second stakeholder recurring theme was that despair is taking its toll in the neighborhood. A handful of landlords keep their properties in poor condition. Graffiti, debris, and other maintenance issues are also taking a toll in the neighborhood. Alleyways and sidewalks in some spots are in poor condition. Home ownership is also seen as a way to create buy-in to hopefully remedy some of these issues. And the third theme is that retail follows rooftops, which means that sometimes there's potential for first-time home buyers and seniors to move into the neighborhood because homes are affordable. With that, we'll follow retail as more people move into the neighborhood. Chichester Avenue and Market Street are seen as viable commercial corridors. By improving the housing stock, there's potential for better retail dining options for area residents. New retail dining options should be geared toward residents, not necessarily just the highway travelers. And from this various research and public outreach and data analysis, we developed the following goals and action items. Goal 1 is to enhance the community involvement and communication. Under this goal, action item 1 is to form a Linwood Heights Neighborhood Association through Heart and Soul to hopefully kind of foster that sense of community pride once again. Action item 2 is to facilitate increased communication between township staff, elected officials, and residents. This could be done through various mediums such as social media, newsletters, community summits, etc. Action item 3 is to involve residents in neighborhood improvement activities, such as Helping Hands and some of the initiatives through Heart and Soul. Goal number 2 is to improve the neighborhood through stabilization and beautification efforts. Action item 1 is to stabilize the housing stock through a housing rehabilitation program. This is something that we discussed in the scope of work, and also it was a priority of the community residents, as seen through the Piggy Bank activity and some of our other interactions. Action item 2 is to enhance mobility with sidewalk, alleyway, and infrastructure improvements. We noted that some places like Market Street don't currently have sidewalks, which kind of poses a danger to residents. So it may be worthwhile to kind of make that a priority and enhance your infrastructure grid in that way. Action item 3 is to improve and expand parking for residents and visitors. And for this, priority was to widen Johnson Avenue, which in its current configuration poses a safety risk, as emergency vehicles do not fit through when vehicles are parked on both sides of the street. Action item 4 is to improve the quality of life by expanding and improving recreational assets. As we heard from neighborhood residents, Johnson Avenue Park is a great amenity, and hopefully there are opportunities elsewhere in the neighborhood to expand that recreation. Goal number 3 is to create a neighborhood through enhanced public safety and capital improvements. Action item 1 is to utilize the neighborhood association to fight crime, and that could come in the form of kind of community policing, where residents are looking out after each other, kind of policing the streets themselves. Action item 2 is to budget for improvements to streetlights and installation of cameras. The residents noted that crime is kind of a perceived issue in the neighborhood, and streetlights and installation of cameras are kind of a low-cost way to combat crime. Action item 3 is to study an internship program at the Upper Chichester Township Police Department. This is a practice that has been done elsewhere, such as in a state college, where community resource officers are deployed at areas with high crime to report crime as it happens. Goal number 4 is to enhance the neighborhood through effective code enforcement. Action item 1 is to identify and create partnerships with entities such as utility companies, the post office, to identify where some of these illegal accessory units exist. Action item 2 is to continue the policy of immediate code violation remedy to ensure that people are making those improvements as they are in violation. Action item number 3 is to educate the neighborhood. That can come in the form of educating them on why reporting some of these code violations is important to maintaining the aesthetics of the community. Goal number 4 is to encourage growth through housing and mixed-use development. Action item 1 is to undertake comprehensive review of township land use and zoning ordinances, as kind of that mixed-use feel that we're kind of going for here. Under your current zoning ordinance, that would not be allowed along the Market Street and Chichester Avenue corridors. Action item 2 is to accommodate new or relocating businesses on Market Street, Chichester Avenue corridors, to offer tax incentives such as TIF and LRTA to entice some of that mixed-use development. Action item 3 is to implement housing development, perhaps through the use of a land bank where tax delinquent properties can be acquired for either rehab or demolition. And now we're getting into the vision that we have for redeveloped and revitalized Linwood Heights. As you can see on the map here, there's a mixed-use overlay on both Market Street and Chichester Avenue, which seems viable since there are highway exits through highly trafficked corridors, so they would be conducive to mixed-use development. We also note new sidewalks on Johnson Avenue where there are gaps. Throughout the neighborhood, we would anticipate that there would be land bank properties that are either acquired or new homes built. Also, homes redeveloped through the housing rehabilitation program. We also note that there are opportunities for more recreation, such as the Linwood Heights Greenway or some other kind of passive recreation options. Also more aesthetic items such as rain gardens. So as I mentioned, the vision for a future Linwood Heights would be stabilized housing stock, mixed-use zoning corridors along Market Street and Chichester Avenue, multimodal transportation improvements to those corridors and also in the residential areas such as Johnson Avenue, and enhancing your existing recreational assets such as Johnson Avenue Park. And right now we open up the floor to questions and answers from the public or the commissioners.
At this moment, I like questions for our board, and then after that, I can take any public comments. So is there anybody from the Board of Commissioners have any questions? Oh, Commissioner Bacco? Yes. Is Dane still there?
Yes, could you please repeat the question?
I'm going to go around commissioner by commissioner to see if they have any questions. So I'm going to start off with Commissioner Joe Bacco. Your feed died for the presentation, so we're trying to get it back up on the screen again.
Oh, okay. Can you see it now?
No, we do not.
We need a recording.
So we'll just go. Dane, just give us a moment, please.
Okay.
We're trying to reconnect the feed.
Okay.
We're doing a reboot.
Okay.
George, I'm just going to start with the questions. Commissioner Bacco?
I have nothing. I mean, I've been seeing the project for a long time. My questions went to Lisa and she answered.
Commissioner Whitaker?
No, not at this time.
Commissioner Rakowski?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment. Thank you for the presentation tonight. Also, looking at the vision, it is a nice vision for Upper Chichester. I've been saying it for a while. I'm glad the Delta Group has started this, and the commissioner and the residents. They see the potential over there, and there is a lot of potential when you change things to mixed use. The Linwood Heights Greenway, that looks very interesting, but something to do. But the idea of going down to Blueville Avenue and Chi Avenue would connect to Boothwyn Town Center. So I do like the plan. I just need to know how we move forward on trying to implement some of this. I do agree that it's a development area that needs to be redeveloped. The potential from Lawhead down to all the way up to our community center, you're absolutely right. You can't get to it. Chichester Avenue, I think we could do a lot better on the main corridor. But I do like it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I submitted all my comments to George, and I'm sure he's relayed them. There are some, practical issues I think that have to be resolved, but I think overall the plan looks like a good plan.
Dane, thank you for presenting tonight. I also submitted questions to our township manager. I believe Ms. Kelly has them also. I think the one concern that I might have is cost association with some of these projects. Some of them, I would definitely like to see if we possibly be able to get it done. But I'd like the board to review this with the fine cone to see whether we need to refine it, or just take some core elements out of here and see if we can work on them. But thank you for putting your hard work into this, and I'm going to turn it over to citizen comments if they have any. Anybody on the left side anybody on the right side of the room have any comments? This is just for the development. Anybody on the opposite side? All right. Let the record show there were no citizen comments. If there's no more comments from the board, Dane, and everybody that put this together, thank you. We're going to take a little break, and then we're going to move on to citizens' comments. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
What's that? What's that? It's up and running? Okay. All right. We had a little technical difficulty. I believe we're back up on Facebook again, so I thank the public for their patience. At this time, I'm going to move on to citizens' comments. Before we take citizens' comments with people present, if there's anybody calling in that would like to make a comment, now is the time to do so. The call-in number is 571-748-4021. Again, the phone number is 571-748-4021, and the password is 005-550-504#. Again, the password is 005-550-504#. And I will give that a moment. Again, that would like to make a comment. Now is the time. All right. All right. Okay. I think we're good to go. All right. At this moment, I'd like the record to show that there's no call-ins for comments, and I'll move the comments to people that are present tonight. So with that said, anybody from the right side of the room would like to come up and speak? Yep.
I'm not going to. I see that you had a manager's report under Black Lives Matters resolution. Is that when you plan to talk about it, or?
Yeah, we can talk about, yes, the board will be talking about it
Okay, so.
tonight, but if you want to make citizens' comments about it, now's the time to do it.
Okay. Well, first of all, giving praise and honor to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and to you commissioners. Good evening. I just wanted to come to you about the Black Lives Matter resolution that we brought up. And I just wanted to say that under the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, it says one nation under God with liberty and justice for all. And basically that's what Black Lives Matter wants to be. We want to be equality to everyone, to everyone, you know. And I think this day and time, when so much is going on around the world, we thought it prevalent that we should bring this up in our community, you know, because we have hundreds and hundreds of African American people of color in this community. And all we're saying, we're not saying we're better or one person is better than the other. We're just saying that we want equal justice under the law. And I just want to say this, that I've been in this community for over 30 years. And you know, the police officers and and the firemen have been fantastic. I have no problems with anybody in this community, my neighbors, and, I love this community, and I do my best to serve in this community in any capacity that I can. So again, you say that all lives matter. Yes, I believe that all lives do matter, but Black lives matter also. And I just wanted to make that point. And I think this should be a slam dunk as far as, the commissioners voting on this. All we're asking that just put it in the record. That's all. Nothing more, nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendell. So we'll be discussing it tonight, Wendell, but our voting meeting will be next week, okay? Anybody else from the right side of the room like to come up and speak? Yes, Ms. Sammons.
Hi, my name is Angela Sammons, 211 Emily Lane. I'd like to thank the commissioners and the township for all the work you do here. And I do want to acknowledge seeing the flags that were placed on Chichester Avenue, sponsored by the Rotary Club and others today. To me, that displays humanity for all. So I just really want to acknowledge that, riding down Chichester Avenue, seeing those flags there, and I know the Rotary Club has done it in the past, but I think I appreciate the fact that they are honoring the heroes of this country, of this nation. So to the commissioners, I know the Rotary Club is a part of that endowment. I think the historical community, Chichester, is also involved, but I wanted to make the statement today so the township would know, the commissioners would know, that as a resident of Upper Chichester, I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sammons. Anybody from the opposite side of the room like to come up and speak? Yes, ma'am. Come on, Judy. I promise I'll get to you next.
I wasn't going to say anything, but after Angie stood up and said what she said, I just want to let you know that those lives that are represented along Chichester Avenue make up the diversity of this community. Because the people who put up and gave the donations for their flag to stand for the person and their family or in this community did it because they recognized that when people give sacrifices, whether they were honoring or whether it's in memory, it's very important for a community to do this because it's about humanity. And in doing so, the Rotary usually does have on political holidays some sort of a ceremony. So we decided that since we couldn't do it on Memorial Day, we would put the flags up anyway and just put them up. And then we decided for Patriots Day, which is the 11th of September, we would have the flags up and allow people to put tags on them, but also at 7 a.m. in the morning of September 11th, right here on Fury Road at the 9/11 Memorial, we are sponsoring a ceremony to commemorate what happened that day in this country. And I think one of the things we need to remember is that there was diversity that day too. People waited in New Jersey at the docks, medical people, for people to be brought over, and there was no one brought over because there was no one to bring over. But they stood there. And today, you and I stand in this community and believe in it, and we believe in your leadership and what you're doing. And we're just asking that we continue to commemorate by honoring this resolution Black Lives Matters. It's not that we are saying that only Black Lives Matter. We're just saying that there are things happening in this country and we've got to call them to attention because it's about humanity. So I thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to come up and speak, ma'am?
We're just here tonight, we live on Eric Drive
Mhm.
in Upper Chi, and we've had some water issues over the last couple of storms. We've been in contact with Joe Neary in reference to it, and we just kind of wanted to see if there were plans and what the township was doing to help fix that area where we're getting a lot of storm water that's coming, draining off of properties.
Okay, Kelly, right?
Yes.
Sorry, Kelly. 70, I forget sometimes. We are going to talk to the DEP about the clear cutting that was done back there that probably exceeded what should be allowed, and see if they want the township to handle it or the DEP. That's the current status. George had a meeting the other day about trying to address some of the issues that are existing throughout the township, not just Eric Drive. We are working. Government works a little slower. I know you guys have done some work over there, and I certainly appreciate what you have done. There are some steps we've taken. That one culvert and put a different screen in front of it. We are trying to talk to the resident closest to Eric to see if he can divert some of the water back down, like put in some type of swale. But, that's the status.
The net you were talking about, back there,
The
netting on
the culvert, the small culvert, which she put, my understanding is the resident put the screen there to prevent her dog from going into the culvert because he kept going into the culvert. So we're going to put a different screen in there, which will not block up as much as the one she had, because she had a smaller grate, so things would not go through. We want to put in something large enough so that the stuff can go through, but small enough that the dog doesn't go through.
I guess like the engineer things we're gonna go out, is that what? We'll just need to see what the plan is, if he's gonna handle it.
Well, we had, George, do you want to address that issue about that meeting?
So with those two storms, we had roughly 70 what we call incidents throughout the township. And so where we're at right now, some of them have been addressed from a perspective of what is the immediate thing we can do, if there is an immediate thing we can do with getting people out. And then we held a meeting the other day to collect all the parties involved, to get all the communication into one place, to divvy it up and start designating out what are the next steps. So for instance, in this situation, there is we could not find a township asset that to be repaired to rectify the problem. So we had to refer this gets referred to our code enforcement department. And at that point, we'll be working with all the appropriate parties, the township engineer, possibly DEP in this situation, to determine whose responsibility the enforcement's going to be and what level of that enforcement is going to be. Out of the 70 events, a lot of the events were overwhelmed stormwater systems. So they were relatively easy to go out and say, okay, this is something where we know we're going to have a large project to fix this pipe, or this was something we need to get to the engineer to engineer a solution. We are going to start following up with this in a manner that would help hopefully get to a solution. I will just caution you with this. Courts are currently closed and they've been closed. So most of our methods go through the court system, and it's been very, very difficult to get compliance on some issues lately. So I don't want to get your hopes up that we can get this resolved in a flash, but it is one of our priorities to get this addressed in a manner that makes sure that it doesn't cause damage to the surrounding properties. That's good. Yeah, so that, we're gonna hold that meeting next week to get a little bit deeper dive into these. So, we'll follow up with you as to what the next steps are with you guys.
George, is there any relief they can apply for through the county, the people that got damaged?
What the county is in the process right now is they're collecting all of the information to determine if we qualify for small, loans from like FEMA for residents that have been impacted. The issue is that there was places that were like completely impacted, and that's kind of where they're looking at first and working their way back. The immediate relief that they gave was they did organize a task force with a phone number you could call in if you had trees down, things down on your property to help out. But as of right now, we have not gotten that information of exactly how that is going to work going forward.
But I did submit your names to I submitted it to the Public Works Department so that they're keeping a list of houses where people have directly contacted me, like 1203, you're 9, right? So yeah, 1203, 1207, 1209, 1215. I know those 4 people contacted me. If you could tell your other neighbors if they want to contact me or contact the township directly, we can put them on the list. Then if there are any type of remedial funds available, we could do it. If we, yeah.
Thank you for coming out tonight. Are there any more comments? Yes, Jaden. Jaden, you being punished tonight? That's why you have to be here? Jaden is Commissioner Whitaker's daughter, and we all known her since a long time ago.
Hello, everyone.
She's all grown up.
Hi, I just wanted to go back to the Black Lives Matter topic and say that you're all politicians and a lot of people here are involved in that world. And we see the ongoing massacre of Black bodies all over. Like this morning, there was someone a Black boy who was shot by a police officer. And it's ongoing. So I just want to say that the Black Lives Matter movement is simply to highlight the ongoing disparities between the races that occur systematically and culturally. So it's not to say that just Black Lives Matter. All lives matter, of course. That's what Black Lives Matter is trying to highlight. So now more than ever, it's important to show the people of color in this township that they matter, because it's been very hard, very, very hard on the Black citizens. So, yeah.
All right. If there's no more citizen comments, we'll move on to our reports, and we'll start with our engineer. Thank you, Jaden.
Thank you, Mr. President. You do have a copy of my report. That report is available for anyone who would like to review it. I have several things on my agenda this evening, just to review. Case Glen project, we have a restoration that needs to be done under the time and material contract, which was clearing the lots so that the residents would not be living next to jungles in their neighborhood. I do have a payment request for AJ Jurek in the amount of $24,309.70. The AutoZone, we did have a revised plan submitted to our office, and Alex Rodriguez from my office has done a review. There is some changes to the plan from when the board saw it last and approved it, and that the developer has determined that it is too expensive to put the gas line to the site and has chosen instead to put a propane tank next to the trash enclosure that's on that site. We spoke with the fire marshal to make sure that he was okay with the location. We've asked them to add bollards so that there is no way that a truck or vehicle that's in the parking lot could hit it. And that is on a plan. I sent over to George today sections, just the details of that. Also, they've changed the trash enclosure that is now pressure treated 2x4s with vinyl slats on it. We've also sent that to the planning commission, for the planning commission to make comment to that, mainly because that was one of the items that the planning commission discussed at their meeting, as they wanted to see something that was a little bit more substantial than what was originally on. So we're still waiting for that comment to come back, and once we have that information, we'll go back to the developer with our comments. The Chichester Avenue streetscape update, we have all of the easements. They're actually access agreements, just allowing us to go up to the property steps, actually, to do the sidewalk work that we're going to do along Chichester Avenue. We're still waiting on Energy Partners. They have an agreement because there's a pipeline through that area. We're waiting for that agreement. Once we have that, and we can submit that to PennDOT, we will have a PennDOT permit and the contract. We had a pre-construction meeting. We're ready to give them a notice to proceed. So I'm hoping next time we meet, I'll be able to tell you that we have issued notice to proceed.
Lisa, we'll be having a virtual town hall meeting with the residents and the business owners in that area on September 17th at 6 o'clock. We'll be doing the virtual town hall meeting with the residents and the business owners on September 17th at 6 p.m.
With the construction vehicles going across that property. It's not working. Have interference otherwise. The Jennifer Way basins, we have an alternative. We are currently waiting for the DEP permit, general permit to come through, and we'll be going across the creek in order to reach the basin to do the work that we need to do. I've also asked on the agenda to the Colonial Drive culvert to be placed. If you notice in the list of projects that or occurrences at the last storm, Colonial Drive culvert was actually one of the issues where there's been some additional erosion. That pipe needs to be replaced or relined. I have a cost estimate ranging from $280,000 to $437,000, depending on the alternate. I'm going to ask the board for authorization to bid that project. We will have an alternate. I'd like to line that project so we are not on the high end of that project's cost estimate. That would mean that we would bring a pipelining company in to line it, the existing pipe, which means we don't have to tear up the street. It'll be quicker, it'll be more efficient, and hopefully we'll see quite a cost savings doing it that way. We'll also have to do some end wall and head wall repair to that particular culvert. It's actually 77-inch by 103-inch culverts under that roadway. So that would have to be replaced. I have in front of me the 2020 road program contracts. We'll get these processed through PennDOT so we can use our liquid fuels money. And we hear from AF Damon that it will be late September, early October. They will be in Upper Chichester Township to complete that work. We need the 329 approval from PennDOT before we can start that. The Bethel Mill Road project is the roundabout. We've been in contact, or PennDOT consultant has been in contact with us concerning how the board would like to see the truck apron. The roundabout has a typical roadway, but because of the radius of the roundabout, there is an apron that is right next to where the green space will be, or the center of that roundabout. They're suggesting either it be plain concrete or stamped concrete. If we do the stamped concrete, the difference between the plain concrete and the stamped will be the responsibility of the township. What I'm suggesting is something in between, because I don't see the need for us to actually put stamped concrete, to do a colored concrete so that it strictly defines the roadway or the cartway everyone will follow that. And if a truck comes through, they'll be able to use that area that would be a colored concrete, probably something like a brick red. So you wouldn't see an actual brick pattern in it, but you would still see that it was colored, so that there is some delineation there. That's my suggestion and recommendation. Well, there are some photos that are available that they sent over. We'll make sure that the board has those so we can make a decision next week. The 322 CSX project, we've been in touch with the consultant for that project. As many of you may be aware, PennDOT is suggesting an access through Excelsior Village Park in order to facilitate maintenance for a rain garden that they are placing right where the current ramp is. The ramp will not be there. I sent a recommendation back to PennDOT that they look at an alternative of putting the access on that side, on the ramp side of 322 versus going through the park. Cited the fact that, number one, there's going to be a noise wall there. This rain garden would be on the opposite side, so it will not be on the roadway side, it'll be on the park side. And I'm suggesting to them that they relocate that noise wall so that it's on the park side, change the attractive nuisance that we may see there, because children are playing in that park. And as well, just the idea of having big maintenance vehicles coming through there. It's not all that often, but we want to make sure that it's not going to damage the basketball court or any of the grass area that's through there. So I haven't heard back from them at this point. That was my recommendation to them. I don't have anything else. We've been working concerning various stormwater projects. I've spoken to the code enforcement office on a couple of them. I'm sure I'll be hearing more as time goes on. From a floodplain administrator, I can tell you that we had no substantial damage that we would need to file a report with FEMA. So that from what I'm gathering from the emergency coordinator, we're clear on that. And I will answer any questions that anyone may have.
Is there any questions for our engineer?
When are they gonna start that bridge project?
I have not heard that yet.
Because that pushes us back further, or what's coming through now.
Correct.
The let on that project is still scheduled for 2021. It would let next year, construction probably start 2022. Just, Lisa was modest in explaining the PennDOT issues with the CSX project. One of the big concerns is if it's not, if PennDOT can't see it when they drive by because there's a wall there, PennDOT's not going to see it. And maintenance is going to become a obligation to residents calling us that there's a problem, us calling PennDOT and trying to get them out there over and over and over again. We have so many parcels in town now that we do that with them. I think if we can urge them to make the change that makes sense here, we should try to do everything we can for that.
So, you recommended that rain garden be on the exterior of the wall, but the whole project, were you recommending that it go on the other side of the highway? Their maintenance facility, like on the CSX or the car lot side, on that side?
What I'm saying is they have a rain garden that they, oh, I'm sorry. I keep forgetting we're recording here. My apologies. What I'm saying is the rain garden, it has to stay where it is because of the drainage patterns.
Okay.
They currently have between the roadway and the rain garden, they want to put the noise barrier. And I'm suggesting to them that they relocate the rain garden closer to the roadway, to 322, and put the noise barrier on the other side. I'd rather see a noise barrier there than for the township, and that was one of the comments I made. I didn't want to bring that up publicly. Thank you, George. But I'd rather see it's more visible to PennDOT. It's not visible to the residents that live in Excelsior Village.
Right.
I explained that that is an isolated area from the township to begin with, from the rest of the community.
Right.
And I felt that it was not in the best interest of the township to allow them to do that. So the other thing that I suggested, however, since it is very infrequent that they'll do maintenance, they'll be on what is considered a post-construction maintenance schedule. I don't know how long that'll last. I told them because of budget concerns, I would rather see that moved. So I'm not talking about bringing it over to the other side of the street.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Thank you. And then I have a question regarding just the project. I saw that on 322, they're doing the medians along 322 going to Concord and through Bethel
Yes.
Township, the medians. Are they proposing that all the way up?
No, not the whole way. They're going to be different. There's going to be some grassed areas, and then there will be medians that are just concrete.
Okay. As far as Upper Chichester, are they going to be concrete?
I
Because
would say
that-
most of the business area is concrete.
Okay.
What you're seeing up there is basically the delineating line in Upper Chi will be 452. Anything between 452 and the on-ramp to I-95 will be the concrete Jersey barrier style, where anything from 452 up, so, and I say generally around that area, that 452 Cherry Tree area, will be what you're seeing being built up there in Concord.
Did they, I was just thinking like for the deer and animals eating grass, like who came up with that idea? The grass. I mean, that's just crazy.
My furthest back recollection from being a manager with the conversation with them was that it was to be a boulevard style of a project, and that's typically what you see in the center of a boulevard.
I questioned that at one of the first meetings, and they said grass in the middle is actually a traffic calming Tom's Trapper.
Okay. And it's
I'm
gonna,
not buying it, I'm just telling you what they told me.
We oppose.
yeah, yeah.
We don't feel that they're safe with oncoming traffic if somebody goes across.
All right, thank you.
I have a quick question. Yeah, or do you want to-
Just one for Lisa, if she could help me out here for her archives. I'm not sure she has it, if she remembers it. The CDBG grant on McKay Avenue, when they did stormwater and stuff on the back end. I have a resident in the front end that needs to put a handicap sign up. We can't find anything in our records, permit manager, or nothing, the width of McKay Avenue, because a lot of it's paved in front of their homes. So the only best way is for her to have her place surveyed to know, but at the same time, the money for her to do that, she needs a handicap sign, but I can't tell her we can't put something up on her property. And I don't know if the CDBG plans show the width of McKay Avenue from 3rd Avenue down or not.
The cartway width of McKay Avenue, we can find on the liquid fuels listing that we have. So we can provide that. I can tell you that during my tenure, that project was awarded a community development block grant, but the engineer that came in after me actually designed it, so I don't have those drawings.
I don't know who had it. All right.
So I do have the width though.
So if I'm able to give you the address, we might be able to find in that area what it might be. for
Yep,
her.
it goes block to block.
Right, okay.
In the PennDOT listing.
Thank you.
Okay. No, this is really, it's simple. The Creekside, have we determined any legal steps we can take? Or is that more of a question for Mike?
I think that's a question for Mike. Right
Okay.
now, the only thing that I can tell the board as far as an update, and this is not because they've contacted our office or the township, the homeowners association, because of an email that I sent out to Al Costa, there was a problem with erosion along the wall of 2000 Village Way. And he went to that property owner and is going to make some changes, actually do the swale, which is on the punch list that they've been fighting that they don't want to do. But they are going to be doing that, raising the grade along the wall so the water doesn't come in onto the building any further. But we have not heard from him at all. So I think the next step would be for Mr. Pierce to send a letter and move forward.
All right. The other question is, at both public meetings that we've had with PennDOT about the roundabouts at Mill and Bethel, I have raised the question of the stormwater problems that we have at Belmont and Larkin, and that we have at Larkin and Bethel. Because alternately, if that's closed, people go down Larkin Road and come back into Greenwood that way. But if those two areas are also closed off, people are not going to have access in or out of Greenwood Avenue and that area back there, the Peach Street, Plum, all that area. So I've asked them at both meetings what their resolution is to that, and I have yet to hear an answer.
And quite frankly, I can't give you an answer. I can tell you that based on the new design that they are putting stormwater management facilities. So there are going to be some retention areas that currently aren't there. However, I don't see anything on any plan that is going to resolve the issues because they're actually PennDOT culverts that are inadequate for the conveyance of more than a 25-year storm. What we're seeing now is well over a 100-year storm event, the last two.
Right. I understand, and I've explained that to them, but my concern is, I mean, you know,
I
the
understand what your
200-year storm
concern is, yes.
is one thing, but with these storms, people are not going to be able to access their properties because unless you end up cutting through Trophy, you know, you go up the Naaman's Creek, cut through Trophy, and I don't think you want to be diverting traffic like that personally. So do we need to send a letter to PennDOT and asking them for some resolution or some answer to my question?
Well, it's an interesting, I guess the interesting answer to that question is yes, because this is a safety project. So I think if we can pull that spin on it, we haven't, as I said, Mr. Neer, we have not gotten anything that I see that is going to resolve that problem. So sending a letter to them may get us someplace. Mhm.
Engineer?
Just a couple real quick. I think we should send that letter to Ken because we've had that conversation with the design engineers numerous times and an email, and we've not gotten anything back from them. So I think it's time to go up the food chain there. The other is this Colonial Drive culvert. That project was listed and approved in the capital budget last year. And I'm going to follow up with the county as well. If you remember back a couple months ago, the county approved a fee on driver's license, vehicle registration renewals. That is to go to the county for bridge projects. And at the time, they collected data from the municipalities asking for potential projects that we had that they may be able to provide some funding for. So I will be going back to the executive director asking for that funding.
The residents over there perfectly happy. Refuse to detect those black lines.
I was going to answer a question in my report. You want me to get it out of the way now? So yes. Okay. We still have the issue over on 322 in front of Mrs. Bradley's house. The unknown sewer line. Well, it's settled a couple more times and the highway department keeps filling it. How do we find out whose line it is? I can't imagine it's ours. It's on 322, but who can we, I mean, who would have a print? Nobody, it's the line from nowhere.
I will make an inquiry of the consultant for the 322 project. If anyone has former plan or existing plans of 322, that would be the only place that I know of, unless somewhere in our basement archives from years gone by, my father may have had a roll of plans, but we'd have to go through all of that. Might be easier to get to see what we can find from PennDOT.
I know here, both here over 30 years, and neither one of them.
It doesn't appear to be part of our system. It feels to be something that may have been tied in at some time to alleviate some situations. We did have a conversation with that design engineer about possibly doing some grading work when they tear down dams, try to get that water away from that property, which may allow us to abandon that if we can find where it goes.
What I think is going to happen when they do the lighting project, they're going to go into it.
Yeah.
Then they ain't going to have a choice. That don't solve the problem now, but it keeps, you're going to come out of the driveway and end up in a hole. All right.
All right, if there's no more questions, we'll move on to our solicitor's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everybody. Couple of things. It's been a little bit of a busy month on a lot of different projects and a lot of different fronts. The first item on the report, and I will have a formal written report for you next week. Unfortunately, I'm out of town right now, did not have access to be able to send it over, but I'll make sure that we get the full report. There was some correspondence that was received regarding the Aqua and Delcora PUC hearing. The issue with that is that as a direct intervener, there was some time limits on that. We are not a customer of Delcora at the current time. The sewer authority, Southern Sewer Authority, is actually the customer, and as I understand it, they have filed a petition to intervene, or they have reached an agreement as to how they're going to proceed on that. We will still have, once the PUC hearings are set, the ability to petition the PUC should we find a need to get involved. In other words, if they are doing something that we feel is not being adequately addressed from all of the other parties related to this, we will certainly have our opportunity to be able to go in and to be heard on those matters. So there was nothing that needed to be urgent. There was some deadlines that if it were what they call a formal protest or a formal intervention, that we would do it at that time, but there was we didn't really have the need or the ability to do it at that time, but we do continue to monitor that situation, and we will have the opportunity to make comments before the PUC to raise our concerns about that. The next matter, we do have a hearing scheduled for next week, which is the Bethel Avenue zoning change request. That's known as the Gagliotti property. There will be a public hearing next at the regular commissioners meeting as part of that. If anybody has any questions, issues, or concerns about those requested changes, that would be the time to be able to bring those up. 2300 Market Street zoning application. That matter is before the zoning hearing board. At last month's meeting, you authorized me to intervene on behalf of the township. I have done so and communicated that to the zoning hearing board, specifically through their solicitor. And that hearing has been moved back because there have been some changes to the application. That hearing is now being held on October the 5th. As to 3300 Market Street zoning application, that hearing has also been scheduled for October the 5th, as I understand from Ms. Kelly. That is related to some of the uses that are going on at the property located at 3300 Market Street. If the board wishes me to appear, we would need a motion next week authorizing the solicitor to intervene and appear on behalf of the township at the zoning hearing board meeting that is scheduled for October the 5th. The last matter that I have to report on, excuse me, is the Jake Briggs draft letter. I should have a draft of that letter for council's review prior to sending it to PennDOT before next week's meeting. Other than that, we've had a lot of activity, a lot of action, but nothing that requires any immediate action by the board.
I'd just like to address one issue that our solicitor brought up, and it's the zoning hearing for 3300 Market Street. We have been issuing them licenses to operate the business. What they have been submitting to the township is a landscaping business license. That's what they said, that they've been operating at the premises. What started the process was there was a sign installed that violated our ordinance, which was noticed by our zoning officer. And on the sign, it says equipment repair, mechanical shop, welding, and fabrication. That type of business is not permitted in C2 from my understanding. So this is what started the whole process. So I know this is in Ms. Whitaker's ward. I think our solicitor should attend to try to get a better understanding of what is going on. Maybe to raise the question of why they have submitted business applications to the township indicating that they were a landscaping business, and now that they're advertising themselves as equipment repair, a mechanical shop, welding, and fabrication. So I think it'd be worthwhile to send our solicitor to get clarification.
I agree.
So we can vote on that next week, and we'll give you a final answer then, Mike.
Sure, that's fine.
All right, thank you.
Mike, you heard the earlier conversation about
Creekside, yes. Yeah, I will get on that. I'll get together with Lisa to see what we have. I know Mr. Costa has been silent lately because he knows probably what's coming. So we'll address that and we'll get those issues resolved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for our solicitor? If not, we'll move on to our manager's report.
Evening, everybody. I cannot promise I will be brief. The first item I have is payroll processing proposal. As you know, we currently use ADP as our payroll processing provider. And over the years, that relationship has become very difficult. They're a very fragmented company. with very difficult to get support on issues. So recently, we've hired a new part-time individual in the department, Marco Bonelli, who has some experience, significant experience doing payroll. And he's looked at some of the issues that we have had come up and some of the things that we'd like them to be able to do to make our lives easier. And he went out and found a payroll company that works with a decent amount of municipalities, has a direct interface with our new accounting software, and also has a staffing level where we would get an account manager that is our account manager. In addition, it roughly, I believe it's about 7,000 in savings a year if we were to go with them due to their costing structure for what we utilize. So I have an analysis in there I'd like you to take a look at. There's a proposed contract. There's some legwork done to make this change, but I think overall it would be we'd be able to provide some savings in the department, and it would assist us to be able to better process payroll and create some efficiencies throughout the many departments. Behind that, I have two actuarial studies for you on the non-uniform pension plan and on the police pension plan. These are in addition to the actual cost study I presented last month on the potential OPEB trust plan. That's other post-employment benefits. We had spoke about looking for ways that we can kind of shore up the financial health of the township for many, many, many generations to come. And I believe that the proposal that we're putting together that we're going to present to you, it'll be presented by myself, our investment advisor, Michael Glacken, our pension advisor, James Kennedy, as well as Mike Vinn from Financial Solutions on a potential bond issuance where we can leverage historic bond rates and have that money in the market working for us, lowering our annual operation costs to manage our post-retirement healthcare benefits and our pensions, as well as creating a significant savings for the future of the township. So I don't know if I'm going to have all that shored up for you by this meeting, but we will need to, it'll be something that'll become time pressing in October, November, and December. So we may have to add in maybe like a special meeting or something to make sure that we stay on time for this stuff. After that, we have an escrow release. A while back, there was a potential project where the Dunkin' Donuts was at Chai and Meeting House was interested possibly moving across the street. They have finally they put that on hold for quite a while, and now they have finally formally withdrawn that application. So we have an escrow release for $3,770.50. Behind that, one of the projects that was built into the capital projects this year was to hire a consultant to look at different tax incentive programs that could possibly be used throughout the township, specifically the LERTA program. I've drafted an RFP that I think gives a significant amount of direction as to what we would need for someone to come in and do the work related to that property. I just also want to note that we also put in there a new Act 61 of 2020, which was passed this year by Governor Wolf, that allows for, it's a very similar program to the LERTA. However, you're not obligated as a municipality to get the buy-in of the county or the school district. So you can directly do it yourselves and give a tax incentive on the township tax. However, the township tax is only about 10% of the total tax paid in the township. So it's some incentive, but obviously the LERTA incentive is a much larger incentive. So please look through that. It's updated from last month. And I will give me any comments because I'd like to get that going. Behind that, you have a couple copies of variations of the resolution that was spoke about during the public comment. The Black Lives, referred to as the Black Lives Matter resolution. And then directly behind that is what's called the ICMA Equity and Inclusion Toolkit. As you know, one of the things during my interview with the board here is that I expressed that I wanted to be able to be part of professional organizations as part of my employment here. I'm a member of the ICMA, which is the International City County Managers Association. And being a member, I'm required to uphold the tenets, which include ethics, reforms, and items like that. And one of the tenets directly reflects that it is my job to ensure that there is equity and inclusion in everything that we do in the township. So I do take this topic pretty seriously, and it's something that I've been working on from day one. If you go through this toolkit, it gives you a lot of really good recommendations of things that we can do in our operations and in delivering of our services to ensure that there's equity. And I think when you look through this, you're going to see there's a lot of things that we do. And I think it's a really good feeling to be able to go through something like this and say, wow, we're going in the right direction on this. So please read through that. Give me any comments. I think if there's something in there that you want to see maybe included in that resolution or you want to share with that, it would absolutely be something that we could do. As you know, the Public Works Department has a capital project this year to finish off a garage, well, not finish off a garage, to erect a garage up in the Highway Department. The intention of the project was for it to last over a couple of years. However, due to COVID-19, we're not sending out groups of teams of employees to do larger projects. So they're able to kind of speed this up. So this would be something that they would be submitting for next year for the rest of the proceeds to finish this project. What I'm going to ask for the board is to approve the additional expenditure in this year in the capital budget to finalize the project, whereas we would not have that cost next year. We have an agreement that you see here from Delaware County. Delaware County has asked all municipalities if they are interested in giving them a location, so real estate, to be able to put in a drop box for people to be able to vote. The request is for the ability to place the drop box, a security camera that would monitor the drop box, and reasonable access to the drop box during reasonable hours. So that's in front of you. I don't know too much around the parameters of how the voting will work with these drop boxes. I didn't get too in details with that. I know I've had some questions about that. I specifically looked at what the request was, which was for these boxes. Under other, I actually have three more items. Sorry, not on the agenda. Each year we have to assign delegates to the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Commissioners. Nicole, I haven't gotten any information about that, but I did get the request from the Pennsylvania Municipal League, which we're also members of, that they're having their virtual conference this year, and we will need to appoint a voting delegate and an alternate to that, as we are members of the Pennsylvania Municipal League. And then you also have two items there behind that, which are agreements from Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. We did this last month as well. There are a lot of takes that are happening through the 322 project, through the Bethel Mill Roundabout, where we own property. So we have two offer to purchase and summary just compensations. One of them is for the property part of the property right down here on the corner of Creek and 322, where we have our billboard. They're offering total damages of $50,700 for that, the area they need. And then we also have one for the property across the street and to the left of that, which is effectively known as the Jennifer Way Open Space. And that the amount for the settlement there is $9,400. So we'll need to take the same actions as last month, which are approving these, as well as doing the resolutions to approve the signer and then going forward.
Is that it, George?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You skip stuff.
I did skip one. Tax collector resignation. We've received the resignation of our elected tax collector. So I'll be working with the effective September 30th, I believe. So I will be working with the township solicitor to be able to tell you what are the next steps that you're required by law to take in filling that position. Thank you.
So any questions for George?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. George, when you said you haven't received notification from what organization regarding the conference? You said PML.
PSA, Pennsylvania State Association
Okay.
Township Commissioners. I know they're doing their conference with the PML.
Right.
So are they still having their annual business meeting? Do you know?
So we are PML now.
Okay, so they dissolved into? Okay.
So they're folded into, the plan is that there will be it's going to be virtual. It's going to be in October, and there will be a track within PML now. So we still have our title, but we'll be a part of that conference, and there'll be a separate track for first class township commissioners in that. So that is the notification from PML.
Great. So when we do the delegates this year, we'll just have to do the delegates to the Pennsylvania Municipal League as opposed to the
Correct.
state.
Correct. Yep. And then my next question is
Excuse me, that would actually
on the
be,
total contract.
those delegates are actually,
The letter that was sent out to the current towing company that has a contract with us was received. I received the response back letting us know it was received. That is on my desk. The 30 days will not expire until after our monthly meeting this month because we have an early meeting this month. So after that 30 days are up, I'll be able to communicate if we've received anything and what the next steps would be.
Do we have that date? Do you know what the 30-day is?
I don't know what it is offhand, but I have the thing sitting on my desk.
So was it as of our last meeting?
No, we set it up, the way it was worded is there's when they received the letter. They got 30 days from the date they received the letter.
File requested return receipt.
Right. So we have a
Okay.
return receipt that dates the day they received the letter.
Got it.
But if didn't want them to have any opportunity to say they had not received.
Okay.
So they received it, but we've gotten no feedback yet, correct? All right, thank you. Any other questions for George?
Yeah, George, what was that first number you said for the land there by our billboard?
It's 50,700, I believe.
Okay. And also, where is it at here? The drop box. I mean, they only want one drop box in the whole township? Or is it going to be separate?
So, yeah, that's what,
Actually, every municipality is going to get one drop box.
right.
And that's why we need to find out what the implications are of having that, because you don't want, that's why they'll also have the security camera, I'm sure, because you don't want someone walking up with 200 ballots. And but you want it in a central location.
Well, I think some of the questions that need to be asked is, well, I guess they want the camera to monitor the box, not an individual, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
And
From what I've read here.
right, so if I live in Aston Township, can I come to Upper Chichester and drop this off also? Is it open to all of Delaware County?
So last time during the primary if you wanted to drop a ballot off, it didn't matter what municipality you lived in, you could drop it off and they were scanned in and they would be, I guess, they're electronically scanned in. Not sure what the situation is going to be this time around. But what I was going to add is they received a grant. They received 49 boxes. And so they're going to put them, one, like Joe said, one in each municipality. If the board adopts that or, that resolution and says, yes, we want one, we have to decide where to put it. But tomorrow at 11 a.m. online, you can sign into the election board meeting where they'll be discussing and answering all those questions. If you have specific questions, send them in and they will answer them. That's the only way you're going to get, they're not holding public meetings, they're online like we are. And they are, that's how they're answering all the questions that they have. So I would say if you have questions, send them to George, email them over, and get them answered tomorrow.
Well, I know at the primary, we were told that, only the individual that filled out the card or the ballot was the only one that was allowed to drop it off. And that if you didn't live within that ward, you were not allowed to bring it to that ward.
That's not true.
I can tell you
that's-
flat out that in Delaware County at the courthouse, they had a box that you could drop off at any time. And while that restriction was true, and that's why I raised the issue that you don't want somebody that can drop off 200, there is a mechanism where you can get approval to submit somebody else. You have to sign a form, but you can submit somebody else's as well. So a husband, for example, could get a form from his wife or vice versa and say, I want them to submit my ballot. And they're allowed to do that.
And where are they giving that? Who are they giving that to? I mean, I saw that form online, right?
I assume
That's the
they
whole
turned,
process.
I assume that they turned it into the election bureau. I did not look into it because
Yeah.
I just submitted mine.
Right. Yeah, but we definitely had people from And I remember listening, being on one of the virtual meetings where we had people that were from the Linwood area that dropped them off where we were at. They, some places were closed. There were a lot of polling places were closed, so they didn't know where to go. We let them drop them in, and it was one. They didn't have hundreds, but they dropped their own off.
This is something the county's going to implement, or they want us to say whether we're in favor of it? I was a little confused on that.
So the request is to enter into a contract with Upper Chichester Township to be able to place the box and a security camera, and to be able to give them reasonable access to that box and the security camera. So we again, I mean, from an operational perspective, that box we would have no responsibility to that box, or, or how voting would happen with that box.
Who provides the camera?
They provide the
They
camera.
provide
They do?
everything.
Yep.
I mean, we had the polling places open last time. I don't see why we can't do that again, but.
Well, I'll tell you, for example, in my ward, we were only able to find 6 volunteers, and they had to handle both precincts. And unfortunately, because of the situation, I was there to open, I was there during the day for a little bit, and I was there to close. But they had over 1,200 voters in the primary, which is significantly more than they normally have. But they're going to have, I'm willing to bet that they'll have 2,500 people there in November, and 6 people are not going to be able to handle it. And there were precincts that were closed last year because they did not have election boards, as well as just the ones that were closed because of consolidation purposes.
Right, so that brings up another point. I know that we were asked the question kind of late in the game. The first question came up about Lutheran Knolls because of being a senior retirement facility, so that one was addressed. But then later, we, got the question, should we just consolidate and bring everybody up here to the township, which may have been good, but it was too late. So if that's something that, that the board wants to consider, you should talk about that soon, so that the county can make those changes, because they sent out, cards to let people know where they're voting at.
I can tell you that we have a parking issue at Ogden Fire Company during the election. And I can tell you, based on the size of this parking lot, if you consolidate all 5 of the precincts, all 5 of the wards here, you will have a huge traffic jam. I think anybody that's ever voted in the 4th Ward can tell you what kind of problems we've had. I'm sure you've seen some of the lines, Kelly. They go.
There's times here that we can barely handle it.
Yeah.
With just the 3rd ward here.
All right, any other questions for our township manager? If not, we'll move on to our commissioner's report. Commissioner Joe Bacco.
Thank you. Everything I have pretty much was covered in all the other people's reports. Just want to make a note, Monday's a holiday. Get your trash bag will be picked up Tuesday. All the reports are on file. I mean, the sewer authority, Mr. Pierce covered that. Unless there's questions, I won't ramble on.
How many questions for you, Joe? Any other questions for our vice chair? No. Let's move on to Commissioner Whitaker.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you. Next week, I will go into more detail, but just so you know that we'll have some information regarding the basketball team and their request for a fee waiver. We also received a request for the community service building, and that request was by Dr. Johnson. And what the plan is to have a cohort of students at our community center, and I guess for some sort of school, right? So kids are out of school, but some sort of operation, no more than 25 students there. And I believe that this is in response to parents that have to go back to work and they have smaller children. So that was a request. There was the Recreation Board had a meeting to discuss that. It sounds like it was going well. I think they're right now in negotiation regarding the cost for renting. And then just to reiterate, September 11th, the memorial service here at 7 a.m. at the township. And then Heart and Soul, they're entering phase 3 of that project. And they will provide the board with an update next month, October. We also have a Delco Arts Week proclamation. This is for October. Is this prior to our October meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be the week of the caucus.
Okay, so we'll review that next week as well. That's all that I have.
Any questions for Commissioner Whitaker? Not, we'll move on to Commissioner Ed Rakowski.
Thank you. Reports are on file. There's a report in there for the emergency management. Due to the storm and the flooding we've had, they have participated in the storm sewer planning for the township in the meeting they had the other day. I think it's a good idea on how we're doing this, how we're actually finally realizing some of the issues we haven't seen and haven't had. I know in my ward, after Hurricane Sandy, Superstorm Sandy, they call it afterwards, we found things in our ward, in my ward, that never knew was there. These last 2 floods, same thing. As Mr. Neary was saying, Bethel and Mill Road there, that flooded out up to almost Mill Road this time. So that will be an issue with this roundabout in his area over there, Larkin and Bethel. So if we definitely get that letter out to PennDOT, that would be great. Next month, actually it's not next month, but this month, we have a National Preparedness Month proclamation. It's a 4-step week, and I'm hoping it's on Facebook and the webpage. It prepares us on storms and hurricanes and stuff like that. We did ask Andrew to put it on the Facebook. I'll be reading that next week. Also, the DCED, we are in contact with the state. We're tentative for a meeting September 24th at the Community Center on Market Street. This is with the commissioners and the committee, and will be open. It has to be advertised, since most of the commissioners, I would hope, would be there. I am requesting on both parties, the committee and the commissioners, if you have any questions regarding the study, have your questions in writing, and the page number. It's a 205-page report. This way it gives the gentleman time to be able to get to that direct page on your question, on the question in regards to the study and how the study was performed and how he came up with his conclusions. We will air that. The state will set everything up. We just tie into it down at the community center, and it will be open up to the public. And I don't think I'm missing anything. That is it.
Any questions for Commissioner Rakowski? Not, we'll move on to Commissioner Joe Neary.
Thank you, Mr. President. The financial reports are not available yet, and the list of bills will be included next week. There is a refund list in your file. There also will be a budget meeting September 17th at 7 p.m., which will be published, and it's the first step in preparing the 2021 township budget. The police department monthly report is available for review, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for Commissioner Neary? If not, we'll wrap up with my report. Just like to jump back to AutoZone and just ask one question. Since they're proposing these changes from a gas line to a propane tank, does this need to come back to the Board of Commissioners to vote for approval, since it wasn't on the original plan? It's not the original scheme.
I do not believe so. Minor change, utilities, or should be per your ordinance underground.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get with Mike Pearson, talk about to see what needs to be.
All right. I just like to get that confirmed,
Yep.
that's all. Thank you.
I agree with that. I don't think it has to be the
About
utilities.
Tonight, the two pending applications, the 2300 Market Street, again, the sign height exceeds our ordinance. Our ordinance states that the sign height has to be 15 feet. They're requesting a height of 79. Our ordinance, I believe, allows for a sign to be 45 square feet, 100 square feet, and some special exemptions. They're asking for 600 square feet. So that's why we're sending our solicitor to the hearing. Also, we do have a pending hearing here in front of the board next week for rezoning for the Gaggle Alley property. It's currently zoned as R2. They're asking to go to C2. I think the one question that I'm going to ask next week is if this pass, will it be a pre-existing non-conforming use? So if it's passed, it's still going to be in the same situation. I believe C2 does not allow for any open space storage. So I just want to, just confirm that if we pass this, that it doesn't become a pre-existing non-conforming use, because I think the complaints are that there's a lot of stuff out there and he wants to change the zoning in order to clean up that site, correct? So right now it's, he hasn't done anything to do that. So I'd just like to ask the applicant what his plan is for the use of it. So I'm just putting that out this week to everybody. Kate's Glen stormwater inlets. I took a drive out there earlier this week. It seems like with all the heavy rain, the inlet was working properly. I did notice that in some of the inlets, we still have the silt covering. I spoke with Lisa Catania. She's aware of the situation. I believe that will be removed shortly. I did not have a chance to verify if the middle light is functioning. So I'm going to try to take a ride out there during the evening time to see if it's on. Clear Channel contract. I know this has been an ongoing subject with us. Their contract is up this year. I know we've had a contract with them for 15 plus years. They're still paying the same rate. Nothing has been renegotiated within that time period. I do receive a lot of complaints about how the bus shelters are being maintained, meaning there's a lot of trash, high grass around the areas. So, I've asked George to start looking into that. So George, can you give us a little update of what you've done so far?
Yeah, so we've reached out to Clear Channel on 2 occasions this year, and then we've reached out to them previously as well, and communicated to them that we did not feel that they are living up to the contract, which requires them to maintain the bus shelters, keep them free of debris, keep them in working conditions. So we've asked them, and they've indicated in the phone conversation with us that they are ill-staffed to be able to satisfy that requirement of the contract. So we've asked to potentially renegotiate this contract with them in a manner that may provide us with more funds to be able to have our highway department take care of the maintenance or something in that manner. So we're going to continue to have discussions with them and work out whatever would be the best deal.
Thank you. Any comments from the board on that? As I mentioned a while back, Lower Chichester requested a meeting with the Board of Commissioners for a bypass line that's being put in through their township. I spoke with the president of Lower Chichester. I believe he would still like to meet with us. So I'm going to have George reach out again to see if there's a possibility to set up a meeting to see how we can move this forward. We received the Wells Fargo application. They want to put ADA handicap ramps in. They're requesting a waiver for land development. They are stating that their hardship for the variance is that the project does not fall under land development. So I'm asking our township engineer to review that to see if that variance is a reasonable request. You don't have to answer that tonight. Please look at it if you want to come back with us for an answer next week. Okay.
I told them the only remedy that they had, should they choose to do so, is to go before the board. This is an ADA project in their minds. However, they are changing the current driveway to a single lane, one-way driveway. They are taking the ATM machine, they're relocating the ATM machine, changing the sidewalks in the parking area. So in my mind, it is absolutely a land development.
Okay.
That was easy for me to answer that.
All right. Thank you. Lastly, Wendell, Miss Angela, and Jaden, I'd like to thank you for coming out tonight. I carefully read through the resolution that you guys presented. I've been evaluating the language, and I do agree with some of it, particularly paragraphs 1, 3, and 4. I believe you when you say all lives matter. And I believe you when you say that our police department is here to help us. This is a very hot potato item in our, not even our community, but nationwide. And I know there's a lot of talk about Black Lives Matter movement. There's a national defunding of the police department. And I know, Wendell, that you do not believe in that. Ms. Salmons, I know that you don't either. And, Jaden, that you stated that tonight. So, I like to continue the dialogue with you. Maybe we can come with an agreement with rewording the language a little bit to give a positive feedback to both sides of the story. So, I'd be happy to meet with you and talk with you one-on-one about it. But I read in the paper today that similar resolutions are being asked to be passed throughout other municipalities also. And I know Andrew is pushing for this. I don't want to give the impression that this is some type of political movement, to try to get him votes or anything. But again, Wendell, I've always been here for you, and I would love to keep the lines of communication open with you. So with that said, I know George wanted me to bring up one last topic for under new business. Just something for the board to consider. It might prolong our caucus meeting, but going forward, I'd like the board to consider voting on items to be placed on the agenda for the commissioners meeting. So, for example, if there's one agenda item that the board is not going to agree on, or there's something that we don't want to move forward with it, we can decide that night whether or not it can go on to the commissioners meeting instead of leaving it on to discuss a second time around. So it's just for consideration. If you have any thoughts.
I thought that's what we currently did anyway.
No.
That's what the purpose of caucus is.
Well, there's some yes and no.
Right. I mean,
But
if there's some
never-
things that we're undecided on, and and that's typically, it goes on the agenda because people don't know how they're going to vote. But if we know that we have talked about it and we're not in favor of it, it doesn't go on the agenda.
It
So unless you have
sometimes works out that way, sometimes doesn't. So
So what you're saying, you want to make the caucus meeting a voting meeting.
a voting meeting to see if we want to place what's on the agenda on the commissioners
On the
meeting.
regular meeting.
Yeah, so it's just for consideration.
Yeah, the proposal would be to just formalize it just slightly. I mean, right now it's kind of like a consensus. If we don't hear any feedback, negative feedback, we move it forward. There is a school of thought of having it where it's an item brought forward and the board voting whether or not that's going to go on the agenda in a more formal fashion. I think it's worth having a discussion to see if that's something that the board wants to go forward with.
Don't we do that now, basically? And then your next meeting, when we vote on something, that gives that person or the commissioner the reasoning to give their explanation or
I think the way you
voice their
handle-
opinion.
So the way you would handle it is, let's say, for instance, an item that was brought up does not get the votes to go on the formal agenda. Then my guess, my assumption, now we got to vet this all out, it was just an idea, would be that that would be something that, because any of you can bring up any motions at any time
Right.
under
Right.
new business.
That's not on the
Right,
agenda.
under new business. But so I guess my only concern with that, I think we utilize that now, but if you want to make it more formalized, I don't see an issue with that. But with the except, I'm sorry?
Who's going to take the minutes?
Right, so then you have the minutes and if it's a hot topic, and just because, how many people don't want it, right? That sort of thing. You can still bring it up on your own as a commissioner if it's something you wanted and the board didn't want to support it. You have an opportunity during a regular meeting to bring it up and discuss it. As long as it's open and commissioners are able to still speak on a subject, then, I don't see a problem with it. So and just in response to what Commissioner Gaudioso said, just for clarity, so when this whole thing Black Lives Matter started and we talk about defunding the police, there is a whole other group of people that say defunding the police and they say, oh, defunding the police. It's not literal, okay? So let's be clear about that. It is using the resources to do more, the police budget, and we know that that's a majority of every municipality's budget, every city across this country. The police make up more than 50% of the operating budget, right? So we're talking about using police resources, reallocating funds for education, for more programs with children, to try to divert them from being criminals, right? To divert them, the school to prison pipeline, to do more things in the community so that the young people that don't have fathers at home or that are in single family homes have other things in the community like PAL. PAL used to be huge. A lot of places don't even have PAL anymore. The money, the budget have cut out programs across the country for children. So we're just saying, let's reallocate funds, put more funding into the community, into the young people, and have the police be a part of that process so that the relationships are strengthened. Like I know one of the things that what I did when we came on the board, we talked about this before, is the community policing, police getting out on the bikes, spending time with the residents. And like I said before, our residents have a great relationship with our police officers. They know the community. They don't feel threatened, when they're going out in our Black neighborhoods. They don't feel threatened. They know us. They talk to us. They hang out. So, just building that relationship, and that's what. And unfortunately, someone came up with that crazy word of defunding when that's not at all what it is. So I just wanted to follow up on that. And again, thank you all for coming out for the comments. I definitely think that we can work on it if we want to change up the wording to something that's representative of Upper Child. We can certainly look at that and go from there. So thanks again.
Have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Thank you.